Good morning, everyone. Welcome to reInvent. Are you looking to grow the skills of your organization? Do you find it challenging to do so with a rapid pace of innovation? What about technologies like generative AI? What type of opportunities do those provide to your workforce to increase productivity? My name is John Bell. I lead the AWS Specialist Communities team. I'm pleased to be joined here by Ceci, the leader of the Collaborative Intelligence team, Rovan, the Enterprise Support Leader for Australia and New Zealand, and Jason, the Head of Cloud for the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. And we're here to share some best practices around AWS and CBA have built our expert communities and how you can leverage technology like AWS Repost and generative AI to enhance your knowledge sharing. So I'm going to start with some common challenges that we've observed. So to start with this, we've seen rapid pace of innovation within information technology across the world, constantly increasing in pace. So 8 years ago, when we started building up our own expert community mechanism, we thought that pace of innovation was fast then. You can imagine 8 years in the future with all these services and features we're launching, as well as our partners, customers, and everything that you all are building. When you augment that with growing workforce, including global reach, people in different regions, localities, language, that can increase the volume of knowledge that is created and is shared with each other. So things like knowing who our experts are, how do they help our customers, how do they curate the knowledge and share that out across the world, and how do we improve our products, can become increasingly challenging over time, and we needed a model that could scale. So to address this in AWS, we built a mechanism called Technical Field Communities, or TFCs, which are intentionally built success communities of professionals across the world who work together on common interests in terms of technology, business use cases, and more, with an effective means to know who our experts are and how they are engaged with our customers. So as you go build your own types of communities and you want to build expert communities of your own, you want to think first of all around scope. What do you want your experts to know? What are your customers asking you? And so based off of this is where you should create the model to then determine what you want to grow knowledge in. So I think of this in two primary axes. This would be things that are technologies like generative AI, compute, storage, containers, to name a few, and all the different technologies that surround that, both the services, partner products, and much more. And then think of business knowledge, industry verticals, particular segments that may be of relevance to you and your company, and how those apply. Things like resilience, making sure you have resilient architectures as you build your own solutions and architectures. So I'm going to show you one of the communities we built in AWS, kind of how that was decomposed. So every community we have in AWS is global, cross-organizational, and focused at a higher domain level of knowledge. An example of this would be databases. So within databases, we broke down the technology into different engines, things like SQL, NoSQL, time stream databases, in order to create sub-communities where we grow expert even deeper, as well as having voices across the world for different regions and organizations. So for example, solution architects, technical account managers, professional services, as well as folks in EMEA, Asia Pacific, public sector, global services, and more, have local chapters within each community that they can drive and create their own voice. This includes leaders from these organizations, as well as staffed thought leaders and program managers who run the community at a global level. So with this, I want to show one of the communities in a little bit more depth so you can think about how you can build your own knowledge communities. I'm showing analytics here on screen. And as you can see, this includes 200 to 400 level knowledge, where we take information from what you all are asking us, and we take that back in order to determine what do we want our experts to know. So to start with, I purposely excluded the 100 level, as you can see, because these are technical communities. So at the 100 level, we expect people to be able to find knowledge themselves. We use our different knowledge bases like AWS Repost and more for folks to be able to find information and take available trainings. As they want to continue with their journey and learn more about a topic, That's where I recommend to keep at a higher level where we think about services, solutions, overall products, like in the analytics space, and how those interact with each other. This is more self-paced, the way we do this at AWS, at the 200 level, and then we save mentoring, deeper engagements, shadowing, things like that for the 300 level, which is where people become experts, requires a lot more time in order to build and retain that knowledge. As you go to the deeper levels, then you can decompose a domain, something like analytics, into use cases like big data, data processing, auxiliary data services, data governance, and more, so that folks can gain subdomain knowledge and then even deeper knowledge as global experts. You can see we built these communities based on AWS services. Those also correspond to partner products across the world and what customers are using with them in different areas specific to, say, big data and data processing. Now, as you're building your own community, you may want to think, well, what should I build for my company? So I'm going to give you an example of a healthcare company and how you could think about this. So within a healthcare company, again, we start at the 200 level. They could come up with base level knowledge either at the company level or at particular community levels, depending on the scope of the given communities that you want to build. Once you've defined that, then we can talk about given technologies that may be relevant or use cases, things like generative AI for healthcare. How could we utilize the technology of generative AI and the solutions and products that you have in your company? Or for particular use cases like medical imaging, medical devices, how you think about how the devices interact and across the technology stack, the different ways that you build solutions for it. As folks gain that competency, you may find that there's even more nuanced questions requiring deeper levels of expertise. Areas like HealthLake on top of analytics, or specific products or technologies that you have in your company and how those interact with the technology underlying it. Okay, now we've defined a little bit about how you would build a community and how you would think about the knowledge and decompose the scope. Once you've done that and you know what knowledge people have, the question is, how do you engage them, right? What do they do? So this diagram shows the AWS engagement flow. I assume you all have very similar engagements in your companies as well, where you're going to start with the customer. They're going to work with the account teams. So in AWS, those would be your solution architects, account managers, and TAMs, CSMs, and other roles. As you work with them, they're going to try to help you to build out that solution that's working towards your use case, right? As they get stuck, they are looking to unblock by enhancing their knowledge, and they'll use available knowledge bases. Things, again, like AWS Repost or out through the internet. And as they look at these knowledge bases and they try to exhaust their resources, they may need an expert. So we built this system in AWS called SpecRec. You may have your own ticketing systems. You may be building on top of that. You may be wanting to build something more custom as well. But when you do, then you can use the knowledge from your communities, take what the customer's asking, and route it to the closest available person with that knowledge. This can become quite powerful because this, A, creates a consistent expert engagement mechanism. B, you can have local experts there to help each other and their peers, and you can grow the knowledge across your workforce. This also can help to automate low complexity requests over time by utilizing the knowledge bases, increasing the knowledge that's in there, and then finding ways so you can make sure the experts are focused on the deepest, most relevant engagements. The next thing I want to show is how you can have communities work together. This example is the intelligent document processing solution you can find on the solutions library, or IDP. You can find this architecture on the console. Now, what happened here is we worked with our prototyping team and some legal companies in order to find ways to increase the processing time for creating these type of documents. And so when we did this, it was successful. We had with the company. It then handed over the solution that we saw, hey, maybe other customers might find this relevant as well. So the machine learning technical field community then adopted this solution. They worked with a couple SDEs to productionize it, and they built out things like architecture diagrams, sample code, and much more that you can all go and use. So this is a good example of how this machine learning community then worked with, say, serverless, database, storage, and other technologies towards an overall solution so they could work together and enhance cross-domain collaboration. But also, because this was prioritized, because of a real customer need, they were able to make sure they're building the right things for our customers and then curate that over time with the systems we have in place. Now I want to show you a little bit about the data outcomes that you can drive from these type of communities. So there's a lot of data that gets created by the engagements that your experts have and around how they're building their knowledge. So you want to start by capturing that data, putting it into a data warehouse such as Redshift, and then you can leverage technologies such as QuickSight and Amazon Q to build insights on top of that. So we've done this with our communities, for example, where we take all of the knowledge or the information that we're getting, we put it into Q, and then people out in the field in different localities, focused on different technologies, can ask questions relevant to their business and get customized responses. This helps with those ad hoc questions where you have varying needs and as wide a breadth of communities as like what we have at AWS. This also helps to recognize members because they see the outcomes of what they've done, both in terms of engagements and in terms of the outcomes of the content and the assets that they've created. And then finally, we can take constant questions that we're seeing out in the field, and we can think of ways to improve our products and our services over time so that you don't need to ask that question as many times because it may flag a need to improve something for the service. And there has been multiple examples of this too with Control Tower, AWS Greengrass, and more. So finally, I started with knowledge, so I want to end with knowledge. The obvious thing to state is that in order for people to retain their expertise, they need time to engage and use it. So first of all, you want to make sure that you're giving people time, that it doesn't become duplicative of their goals, right? That it is part of what they do in their job. Then think of things of how they can then enhance their knowledge, like what you're all doing here at reInvent, which, by the way, if you go to the Ask the Expert booths or the Pure Talks, or even any of these sessions, about 80% of the sessions, they're sourcing either the speakers or reviewers from our AWS technical field communities. You can also think of how you want members to network with each other, right? So we host our own TFC Summit Week, but we also have networking events that happen across the world in each of these local chapters. And it's important that people are able to see each other, get to know each other, and build those lasting connections over time. Okay, so I've shared some best practices with you on how you can leverage the AWS communities, how we built our communities, and how you can build your communities as well. And I'd like to introduce Ceci, who's going to share a little bit with you about you can use AWS technologies such as Repost or generative AI to scale knowledge through human AI collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Shashibhushan Somarautu. I'm the leader for collaborative intelligence technology at Amazon Web Services. You heard from John on how you can bring communities together to build the knowledge and build the knowledge that can be reusable across your organization. You might have also already experienced the transformative capabilities of generative AI in your role every day. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can bring these two powerful forces together to drive collaborative intelligence and scale your knowledge. Collaborative intelligence is an approach where humans and AI work together to solve problems. Generative AI is transformational and can process large amounts of data and content, and it can generate insights and content for anybody to use. At the same time, humans have the capability of providing nuanced context and judgment that is vital to ensure that the knowledge is valuable. By bringing these two powerful forces together, you can build collective wisdom and continuously improve the productivity around knowledge management. The key to any organization is to ensure that you maintain a competitive advantage and also drive continuous improvement and innovation. And collaborative intelligence plays a vital role in that journey. The concept of collaborative intelligence is not entirely new. Human translators and machine translations have been partnering and working together for over 2 decades to improve the technical content translation. In this translation journey, as you can see in the flywheel, it all starts with a huge amount of corpus of translation memory that is created by the translation vendors in the technical content domain. This translation memory contains strings of text in various languages, and when a machine translation engine takes the translation input, it takes the content and uses the translation memory to generate the output. This output may not always be 100% accurate, and that is where human experts come into play. And through human post-editing, the translation content is continuously improved, and the quality is ensured through linguistic experts. So these linguistic experts ensure that the context and nuance within each language is maintained. All of this feedback that is generated through the human experts is fed back into the translation memory and driving continuous improvement of translation. This has ensured an ongoing improvement to the translation quality over past 2 decades. And in terms of the context, in this context, collaborative intelligence has allowed the rapid processing of content and drove translation, whereas humans ensure the quality of the translation, driving collaborative intelligence. While this concept is not entirely new, the specific application of this in knowledge management is something that I'm going to talk about. And you heard from John about how the technical field communities have created a huge amount of data and huge amount of knowledge that is reusable across the organization. And this knowledge is valuable for many of our employees. And similarly, within your organizations, you might have huge amount of knowledge that is available for employees to reuse. And through this knowledge base, and with the evolution of generative AI, we trained large language models with a massive corpus of AWS knowledge. Once we trained that model, we were able to generate answers and solutions to common problems. However, these solutions and answers may not be accurate all the time. The reason for that is the constantly changing innovation and the pace at which the technology is evolving. The knowledge that was generated yesterday may not be accurate today or may not be relevant today. This is where human experts come into play. Human experts ensure that the output generated by these large language models and the answers generated by them are validated to ensure that they are still relevant in today's context and the current situation. And based on that feedback, the feedback is verified and fed back into the curated knowledge base, creating a knowledge flywheel. This knowledge flywheel is essential to ensure ongoing quality of knowledge and create a knowledge management that is scalable across the organization. Now let's talk about how you can embrace this knowledge best practices and how you can create this knowledge flywheel within your organization. In order for you to do that, there are 4 essential elements to create a knowledge network. So the first one is your subject matter experts. John mentioned about how you can bring in your subject matter experts and create communities. These are the experts who has a lot of tacit knowledge that is internalized to them, and they provide tremendous value by externalizing the knowledge in the form of knowledge bases. In your organization, you may already have a vast amount of knowledge base or documentation used across your organization to help answer any internal questions. The third component is similar to how organizations have experts. AWS have the technical field communities who are experts in our subject matters around databases, analytics, generative AI, and various technology and industry domains. These experts have been working alongside our customers to solve problems and provide common solutions to common problems. We also have a huge corpus of AWS knowledge that is available over the past several years that's accumulated with the pace of innovation at AWS. By bringing these four capabilities together and integrating with generative AI, you can create a knowledge network that is dynamic, interconnected, and continuously evolving across your organization. This collaborative approach allows organizations not only scale the knowledge management practices, but also help improve the developer productivity. How can you actually embrace this within your organization? I would like to introduce you to AWS Repos Private, which is a purpose-built service to build your own cloud community of practice. You can build your own private knowledge base, and you can also bring all the public knowledge and private knowledge around your organization to continuously improve developer productivity and drive innovation. Let me walk you through some of the key capabilities of Repos Private. So within your organization, there are a lot of developers, that are onboarding, and also a lot of developers that needs to transform their skill on an ongoing basis with the evolution of technology. It is really important for you to create curated learning paths for these developers around a specific topic or subject area or domain or a skill or even around a persona. For example, if I want to create generative AI learning paths for DevOps engineers, you could use Repos Private to create these learning paths. These learning paths could be content from within your organization, within your LMS, or content from AWS public knowledge. Using Repos Private, you can also build cloud communities of practice. It is really essential for your organization to have a cloud community of practice, which would help create and disseminate best practices. How do you design for scale? How do you design for resilience? How do you ensure operational excellence and cost optimization as part of your cloud implementations? And several central cloud teams create these best practices and distribute across the organization. So you can use Repos Private to create these best practices and disseminate. Like John mentioned, you have a lot of you might have a lot of knowledge that you can accumulate through various communities. And how do you reuse that knowledge? You can build a searchable, repeatable, scalable, and secure knowledge base within your organization and help eliminate redundant and duplicate questions from your developers. By helping them ask questions and answer through a collaborative environment, you can create private discussion forums, which can be reused across your organization. Even if there are changing skills, changing roles, the private discussion forums that are persistent and helpful in accessing the knowledge. In order for your community members to participate in this private discussion forum and engage, Repos Private provides a built-in gamification mechanism where it provides points-based reward system to recognize top contributors through a leaderboard. So you can use gamification to drive ongoing engagement. Lastly, and most importantly, I'm excited to share that AWS Repos Private is integrated with Amazon Bedrock, which is a generative AI framework to kind of bring in your private knowledge and bring in your AWS public knowledge into one place to provide contextual responses to your questions. Repos Private is an AWS managed service that can scale to tens and thousands of developers. We at AWS have been using this technology for more than 6 years. And I'm excited to welcome Rowan and Jason, who will walk you through a real-world use case on how Commonwealth Bank of Australia using AWS Repos Private to improve the developer productivity and drive continuous innovation.
All right, so we've heard from Sasi what is Repos Private is about and the generative AI capabilities it has. We also heard earlier from John about how AWS created the technical field communities. Now let's move into a real life use case from a customer perspective. So I'm Rowan, a principal technologist. I work for AWS. I've been in the TFC or technical field community for over 7 years. And I co-lead the resiliency TFC in APAC. And I have had the pleasure for like over 5 years now to lead enterprise support team on Commonwealth Bank of Australia. And that long established relationship have actually allowed us to understand the ways of working from the bank, how they establish their processes, and also what challenges do they have. And that allows us to tailor solutions to them and shape our services to their need. And with that, let's introduce Jason from Commonwealth Bank.
Thanks, Rovan. Hi, my name's Jason Sandary, and I'm the crew lead for the Cloud Foundations crew at Commonwealth Bank of Australia. I lead about 120 engineers split across 12 squads in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and India. And our crew is responsible for building the shim that operates between AWS native and the group. And we're responsible for building a lot of the automated controls, the preventative controls, the detection controls, and central services like egress, ingress, private links, yada, yada, yada. But let me introduce Commonwealth Bank to you, or as we call it in Australia, CBA, because we hate long names. We like to shorten everything. CBA is a leading institution in Australia covering retail, commercial, institutional, and all forms of banking. And all in all, we have about 17 million customers. CBA Group also includes a predominantly digital bank called Bank West, which has a huge presence on the West Coast. And we also have a New Zealand bank called ASB, or Auckland Savings Bank. Now, with so many customers in Australia, we're really important to the Australian economy. In fact, over 50% of Australia's transactions flow through our systems every day. So it's very important that we're able to maintain resiliency, security, but also velocity in our group. CBA is very much customer focused, and that's something that I take to heart quite a lot. And we try to build that same ethos into the solutions that we deliver for our internal engineers. CBA is a truly customer-centric bank, and we try to make sure that when our customers need us, we're there. And for us, that also translates to making sure that we can provide quality product to the market as quickly as possible. CBA has been in the cloud for quite a long time. But I won't bore you with all the history, but I can probably say over the last 10 years, our focus has been very much on shoring up the control elements and preventing, obviously, any security incidents, but also really focusing on DevSecOps and velocity. And the way that we do that is through building automated procedures and really pushing the shift left mentality. We started with a lift and shift, which was great. We've also had a very heavy aspect on modernization. Now, the emphasis, obviously, when moving thousands of apps to the cloud, needs to start going around optimization, FinOps, et cetera, et cetera. And now with thousands of engineers operating on our platform daily, that optimization of delivery is relevant and really important.
All right, so in our observations across mid to large enterprises, including Commonwealth Bank, we notice a common pattern. As organizations grow, break out to different teams, build application, also their AWS footprint grow, they tend organically to work in silos. And that silo comes with certain problems. You will find lack of visibility between teams, fragmented communication, and also tribal knowledge, which is a very common issue in most of enterprises. And once you see these problems, what is the impact on the teams? You will see a delayed results because communication don't flow freely. So there is slowness, there is bottlenecks. And you also start to see reduced productivity because practically engineers and developers either try to find the right information or an accurate answer to a question they have, or sometimes go and duplicate work that were done somewhere else. So with that, Jason, maybe with this observation, let's dive deeper in what you found in CBA.
Sure, Rove. So lots of challenges, which is probably how we came to repost private. And as Rovan mentioned, that tribal knowledge, which is really valuable, is often in silos. Another wealth of information which we weren't able to put across all of our engineers was our support tickets. So even my internal cloud team, we resolve around 900 support tickets internal to CBA, plus the hundreds of support tickets that get logged directly to AWS. And there's a wealth of information for our engineers in this data set, but it's not available and it's not accessible. The other problem is with such a large organization and many engineers, we ended up with all these pockets of diverse support information, be it Teams chats, be it Jira, be it the support information. And because they weren't searchable, people were unable to sort of get a very quick and easy answer to their problems. The other part is around that streamlining of knowledge sharing. So aside from just support information, it's very difficult for our engineers to publish a central location where they want to put their white papers. And we have a huge technical community at CBA, who I very much value, and we want to give them a space to share their ideas and their knowledge, and for that information as well to be indexed and used. One of my most annoying challenges is the repetitive question problem. I mean, no two engineers are the same, but I guarantee you lots of their problems are. And we found across many of our channels, same questions being asked. Time and time again, granted slightly different, but same outcome. And that's both annoying for customers, but also for the technical community who are servicing these requests. And that probably leads to the other challenge is, with all these diverse channels of help and support, community contribution, it's very difficult to recognize these people, and they should be. Many of the people who contribute to my technical community are actually not part of my crew. And I think part of that is how you build a rewarding community, is you've got to be able to give them that recognition, both in terms of kudos, but also in terms of internal recognition through points and whatnot.
So what you heard, we see it across the board as an AWS, with CPA, with other organizations. And this is precisely where the technical field community that Jason was talking about and repost and its Gen AI capabilities come together to solve this problem, break out silos, streamline the communication and visibility across teams. So let's see how this ties together and what is the plan that we proposed for Commonwealth Bank. So as any organization, CPA would have their data, context, processes stored in different repositories, maybe in S3 bucket or SharePoint website or GitHub or any, just et cetera, et cetera. So what happens here is repost with its agent powered by Bedrock connect to these repositories, gain access to these contexts and information. And let's say I'm a Commonwealth Bank engineer. I have a question. So I go and post a question to repost. Then the generative AI powered agent by repost private answers my question. But sometimes, and it happens, it's a novel question. It's a novel issue. The information that the engineer is looking for might not be in AWS white paper, neither in Commonwealth Bank repositories. Then what they can do, they can shift that question to a support case that goes to AWS support, who can then intervene and answer these questions. They also, if yourself, similar to CPA, have access to enterprise support, have a TAM aligned to your account, they will be able to provide you guidance. And from there, what happens? This novel knowledge, you get the technical communities within the bank take it and put it as a new context in their own repositories. And this is where the flywheel comes into play. It feeds it into the repositories that they have, that Bedrock have access to. So it's practically a flywheel of knowledge management. So Jason, we did propose you as a solution. Tell us, what did you do?
Sure. Well, very first thing, and I recommend everybody does this, is you set out some goals. Think of those as your North Stars, the things that we are trying to achieve. One of the first goals for us was to take advantage of the wealth of all of that AWS information, the global support community, but to add our CBA context into there. It might sound pretty simple, but there's some pretty heavy work in the back end to get that happening. The other part is that we also wanted to contextualize further by adding our own DevSecOps documentation and procedures. And that's very important because in our world, we have quite an opinionated view when it comes to engineering and DevSecOps. Another key goal was to bring some of those diverse channels back to a single place, a single pane of glass, if you will. And Rovan was just talking then about the ability for repos both to ask questions, bedrock either answer or not, but for then that escalation up to a support ticket where you're unable to get that answer, that's a great example where we're trying to talk about that bringing together of those channels. The other key thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to set ourselves aside from other chatbots. No doubt many of you have access to many within your banks or into your groups, even publicly, but this isn't a general information. This is very much an AWS cloud-specific location. So that's how we want to differentiate ourselves from that. And also, the agent interaction is not like a chatbot. And that's by design and certainly what we're trying to achieve here. Lastly, but really importantly, is we wanted to bring the diverse set of community members and we wanted to give them a home. We want to give them a space where they can continue to contribute to community, but also give them a platform. There's lots of engineers in my world and in our group that are really smart, they've got great ideas, and they like sharing them. But be it Confluence, be it SharePoint, be it whatever, there's not a central place where that information can be stored and, frustratingly, be reused quickly and easily. The other part around our goals, because metrification is quite important for us, is that we wanted to have a measure. Like, how will we know that repos will be doing something good? And one of the things that I can measure are those internal support tickets, and there's a huge number of them. So by merging that AWS, but importantly the CBA knowledge base, and being able to reference and replay some of our previous support problems, we aim to reduce around 30% of the support tickets that get logged to my team. Now, the harder thing, which I can't measure as easily, but I'd love to, because this is what it's all about, is every single one of those support tickets that either go to AWS or my team, and sometimes, often both, is actually a point of friction. It is a period of time where some of my developers or the group's developers cannot do something because they're unable to access the right information they need. And when you have thousands of developers working every single day on your platform, and they are doing important things, each one of those blocks in time represent a wastage. And that's what we're really trying to achieve. It's just really hard to measure. So let's maybe run through one of the previous journeys. So as I mentioned, we have thousands of engineers. Many of them, obviously, cloud experience, and they might have worked in a previous organization, and they're like, yes, okay, I've got my count out in 4 hours, perfect, great SLA, but I need internet egress. Okay, that's all right. Where I used to work, we'd just drop in some IGWs, yada, yada, yada. So they go to the internet, IGW, internet egress. Okay, let me use another search engine. They read the AWS white paper. Cool. All right, I know how to do this. No problems. And then they go to support. They go to drop in whatever solution they're using, typically IGW. But of course, at a financial institution and controls in place, you just can't open up rules. You just can't drop services that allow egress willy-nilly. And it fails. Customer picks up the phone, calls the AWS support line. It's not a critical support ticket, so they wait a while, as they should. Only for the AWS support engineer to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with us. There's an SCP block in here or something else is blocking you. You should speak to your central cloud team. That's when they pick up another phone or log a Jira ticket and they log an internal support ticket. And again, as you should, as SLOs dictate, there's usually a period of time until that's looked at, only for one of my team generally to give them the answer, which is, well, yeah, of course you just can't get internet egress. Here's the documentation link to your pull request that you need to submit to set all that up. Now, when you add all that much time up, it can be quite a lot of time. Like you're talking multiple days, depending if it's over weekends, even longer. And that lack of getting the correct contextual answer at the very start is the thing that leads to this. And here's an example. If I go ahead and go to AWS documentation or even repost public and put it in internet egress, sure, it's going to give me valid responses. They're perfectly valid, but they're certainly not valid in an institution that has control planes set in, and probably in many of your other institutions. So let's talk about what the ideal journey for us is. Same engineer, just different universe. Needs to get internet egress. Dun, dun, dun. Repost. Single pane of glass, no search engines, pops it in. Repost understands that this is a CBA engineer using the Bedrock engine and our schema that we have from AWS to capture that information, tag it, contextualize it, and feed it into Repost. Repost private delivers the CBA contextual answer on the first go, and winning. So that importance of the contextual information being there has saved not only days of effort, but points of frustration. Like, as engineers, there's nothing worse when you know you can do something, but something's in the way, so it must be done differently. And the only thing that's stopping that is the right context. And to give you an example, internet egress on our repost private, bang, bang. Essentially gives you the automated approach, the settings that we need to deploy first time. The other part that I really want to highlight around repost private and our CBA world is the importance of community. I love my technical community. They're fellow nerds. They're passionate about technology, they're passionate about our customers, and they understand the importance of getting the right info at the right time. Part of what we're trying to do here with Repost is reward them, and not just through points or through recognition, but reward them with the right kind of tooling. By being able to cut down the various channels and being able to give them their own platform as well, means that we're going to engage them in a different way, and hopefully a much more conducive way for them actually putting out more content themselves. Repost private also allows us the opportunity to create our internal groups or communities, as you saw before with the other presentation. So an example there would be institutional banking, equities, retail. And where this ties in with that tribal knowledge is we can still maintain the element of tribes, because ultimately people do like the tribe concept. But the information that's stored within that tribe, although contextual both for CBA and the tribe, is actually now leverageable by everybody else. And we see that that's fundamental to being able to collaborate in here. The other part around this is that branching out from our CBA community and being able to directly access the AWS one. As Rovan was talking about, when I engage with Repost private and I've got a really curly question and there is no answer, that single pane of glass allows me to leverage the AWS community. Mm-hmm. And for us, that's really, really strong, and it's really quite cool. Because again, that need to break out and go to yet another UI or another GUI to log a support ticket becomes really valuable. So I suppose, Rove, when we talk about Repost private, and if you were considering it, I think there's a really huge amount of value working with your AWS team. The support team helps you plan out this journey, and they will hopefully help you run through some of your own customer journeys first. And I think that's absolutely pivotal, because being able to understand what customer journeys you're able to address and what you want to transform them into, I think will help shape the way that you view Repost private. How do you want to plan out your customer communities? Another key element as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously then, working with the AWS team around the design element becomes super critical as well, because you've also then got to design out which pockets of information are you going to bring in. I know personally we found it quite difficult to work out what information should we put into Repost. Because again, our goal was to have truly contextual and accurate information at most cases. And like probably many other organizations, there is old data pocketed everywhere. So our design was quite curated in our approach, and we actually took less is more. And then in terms of the implementation approach, again, the access we've had to the AWS TAM team and the product team has been amazing. And I imagine that you would get that same sort of response. And with them helping you through that implementation, tuning of the engine at the back end, tuning of the schema, setting up the buckets to be able to transfer that information through is absolutely amazing as well. And the last part is the optimization. So this is definitely not a set and forget product. But there are some really cool features that make that ongoing optimization of the engine a little bit easier than other sort of AI models. And that's predominantly that the interface for repost private with the vote up and down buttons is actually quite an ingenious way of tuning the engine on the right answers. So that sort of calls into a point around your engaged community needs to be interacting with those answers to continuously tune that product. But also, you need to keep ingesting it with new data. And that's a really important part. And again, working with the product and your support team, I think is key to that success. So let's talk about some of the outcomes, right? What have we delivered? So for us, repost private comes out of the box. Every single engineer, when they get their AWS account or they get access to an AWS account, will automatically get onboarded to repost private. So that's not just my team, it's all engineers who leverage and touch public cloud and CBA. On top of that, there are many engineers who are coming up to their journey that might not have access now, and they also need to get access to this information. And certainly, some of our engineering leaders who might not be on the tools anymore, they also want access. So we have both the automated onboarding process when an account gets access to or delivered, but a secondary automated onboarding process for non-access as well. What we've also achieved is that merging of CBA data and AWS data through a combination of schema exports, schema downloads, exporting of information, and tuning that engine. So that's running right now, which is really great. And we've also managed to get that collaboration between AI and our technical communities. And for me, that's the merging of intelligence and smartness, rather than just dishing up, an AI-fed response. We've also set up our communities now, and we have a number of the horizontal communities set up with people contributing. We've also managed to make sure that our productivity in terms of reduction of same questions being answered is now in place. Actually, what's the date today? Going live, I think, today. Which means that for the questions that we have being asked on a number of occasions, and sometimes not always getting the right answer, because not all community people are the same, is now doing that as well. And the other large outcome that we had, just before we flew out over here, we held our launch party in Sydney with both Melbourne hooking in and India. And that's where we essentially launched Repost to our community as well. And that's now in place. And yeah, hopefully we'll also start tracking our 30% ticket reduction in the coming months, Rove.
Sure. So we hope this inspired you to go and build your own communities, your technical communities, and also leverage the AI capabilities that help streamline these questions, access to information, accurate answers in the right time to reduce the frustration of engineers and developers and increase the velocities within your teams. So I've put over here a call to action for you. First of all, if you would like to use Repost Private, here is a barcode for it. It's going to take you to the website. The free tier will give you unlimited access for a number of users, for unlimited number of users, I should say. If you would like to establish your own technical communities, feel free to go and ask one of us over here after the session, or go to the expo and ask one of the experts. We hope this session been informative for you and inspire you to go and establish your own community, increase velocity. Please don't forget to rate the session through the survey. Thanks very much.
Thank you.